Welcome to the Trader a Traitors podcast. I'm Matthew. I'm a writer working in unscripted TV development, and this podcast is mainly dedicated to English-speaking versions of the TV phenomenon The Traitors, although occasionally we veer into other strategy reality competitions like Genius Game and Million Dollar Secret. Most recently, we covered the fantastic Traitors India, and we are now onto a brand new series of The Traitors. It is The Traitors Ireland. Last time we kicked off this new season of the pod by diving right into episode one, and I was joined by podcast longtime co-host Lindsay. And today I am joined by someone else who will be very familiar to regular listeners of the Trader. It's MaJiKer! MaJiKer, or Matthew, as I know you. Two Matthews. How are you doing?
Tamega Ma, Conostatu, Gia Ditch.
Yes, I know what that means. And understand very well.
So
Um,
little did I think that my 850 days on Duolingo Irish would ever come in useful whatsoever in life, because as we learnt in this episode, most Irish people sadly don't speak Irish. I'm not Irish. I've never even been to the island of Éire, but I like languages and I've given it a go, and I could not be prouder that I can actually say, hey, let me teach you something. Gia Ditch, it means God to you. Gia Ditch, hello.
Giadich.
Gia
Okay,
Ditch or
Giadich.
Gia Hitch if you're from a different part of Ireland. It gets complicated and we're just saying hello.
And I can promise listeners, Matthew is not making this up. Like for months, you've been telling me about your progress with your Irish on Duolingo. So this is genuine. This is just sort of a happy coincidence.
I'll show you my daily streak if you like. I can prove it. I got the receipts.
You
Although I
can.
don't know how to say I got the receipts in Irish just yet, but I'll get there.
By the end of the season, you'll be fluent. It's
Yes,
fine. It's fine.
exactly.
Now, Matthew, you joined me on the podcast most recently to talk about the entire season of Traitors India, which we both absolutely loved.
Mhm.
Excited? Are you excited about this new season of Ireland?
Oh yes. Yeah, it's great. Uh Beautiful, really nice kind of art direction. I thought like the camera angles, editing, top notch. Um yeah, it's going to be an interesting one because like you say, there are maybe a few kind of like downsides of the prize money is modest, but hey, you work with what you've got. This show has never
Yes.
really been about the money. Um And there is always that concern in a smaller country that people know each other. It happened a lot in New Zealand. And apparently that is a thing in Ireland that people are like, oh, I know your mom. And they said that on the episode, didn't they? They said, oh, I know
Yeah.
your mom from so and so. Um, but that's all a part of it. I'm just loving how like uniquely Irish it is, and particularly in this episode, which is a pure coincidence that we end up using a bit of the old Guelga. And let me tell you, when I understood what Siobhan McSweeney said, I was shook. I was shook. I texted you right away. I was, oh my goodness, what is happening? 850 days on Duolingo is useful for something.
It's all paid off for
It's
this podcast. Speaking of Siobhan, how are you enjoying her as our host?
I really am. At the start, I wasn't sure. I thought she was hamming it up. She's got
Hmm.
a lot of people to, a lot of big shoes to fill. You know, obviously Alan Cumming and Claudia Winkleman being the main ones. But I think already in these two episodes, she's carved out her own little niche. I do find her really charming and endearing, and yeah, good choice.
Yeah, yeah. I just was a fan. I'm even more of a fan. And this is not a lie. Sometimes we play a little lying game on the podcast. We're not doing that right now. I worked with someone for a very long time who used to live with Siobhan. They were
Oh.
flatmates for a while. But when she told me this, I was like, I love Siobhan. This is so exciting. We are, I think, ready to just go for it, get right into episode two, Traitors Ireland, series one. Here we go. We begin with our usual little recap. What did we miss last time? What do we need to be reminded of? So we have Gemma and John were sent home instantly, actually not by the host, but by another player, by Andrew. And of course, you and I have seen this on various iterations of the Traitors. Anyone who's seen UK season one, particularly US, you're probably familiar with that. And then Caitlin, Eamon, and Poddy were chosen as the actual traitors. We discover there's a secret father-son pairing, so secret that even they didn't know about it. Andrew and Poddy, father and son, or should I say, daddy and son, didn't even know the other was going to be there. And we finished episode one with the traitors making a choice, seemingly between David, Michelle, and Mark about their first murder victim. My prediction was David. I promise I recorded episode one of the pod before I had watched episode two. I made a genuine prediction. Let's see what happens. So we start off at breakfast. Diane and Andrew arrive first. She says she's very excited she didn't get murdered. And I thought, yes, Diane, there's a very good reason why you've not been murdered. I don't think Diane's quite aware of how much other people are talking about her so far.
Mhm.
Uh, Based on first impressions, not that it's going to matter for a lot longer. Were you enjoying Diane as a cast member, Matthew?
I was. I mean, slightly erratic, slightly a bit kind of all over the place. And yeah, you can't help but having the feeling that maybe she hadn't quite understood the ins and outs of the game, but she seemed like a lovely lady.
Yes, seemed very sweet, and yes, at least she was very. Getting ahead of myself, but she was very light-hearted about it all and acknowledged
Mm.
that it was just a bit of fun and it was a game. So, but I was instantly a fan of Diane. She stood out to me.
Mhm.
Caitlin arrives in the next group. Of course, Caitlin is one of our traitors. And it's funny because in her MIV, her main interview, she says she only had about 3 hours sleep last night. And that really answers Lindsay's question from episode one of the podcast. Lindsay was saying, surely these traitors can't get to sleep much. So there's our proof. Caitlin is telling us, I am exhausted. I've had 3 hours of sleep. But, they have to act like they've had as much sleep as anyone else in the castle.
Mm.
Wilkin arrives, and I realize there's someone called Wilkin. He had, sorry, Wilkin, he had passed me by in episode one. I don't really know if he had much screen time, so this was the first moment I thought, oh, you're a contestant. I didn't notice you. Now, we've got Vanessa. Vanessa is very suspicious about Diane because of how happy Diane is to see everyone. She keeps saying, "Oh, you've made it, we've made it through to another day." And she's kind of repeating that to every single person who comes in. Now, I don't know what you think of that. I know that especially early on in this game, your first day, your second day, they cling to anything as a reason to pick up on someone. Is this really a good reason to suspect someone of being a traitor? Like, I didn't think it was
Mm.
that bad. I don't know.
This is one of those where it's like they don't know each other. Like, so she could just be someone who repeats the same thing again and again and again, and lots of people do. They have their little phrase. Maybe if they're a bit socially awkward, so they're like, "Oh, so glad we made it through," and then you just say it to everyone you've seen. So that is
Yeah,
not a reason to be suspicious. But like you say, they haven't got anything to go on. If you think about
yeah,
like just the maths of it, how much time do they actually get to talk to everybody else? It's like seconds probably, just like a couple
yeah,
of minutes here, a couple of minutes there.
yeah. You're. I know. I have to put myself in their shoes, and you're right. In between the mission and I think there's a lot of time on set they are told like, don't speak to each other now.
Mm.
We'll take you away. They're sequestered at various points, and then told, right, now the cameras are on, you can talk. Yeah, they probably have had a couple of minutes with each person, if that, and it depends who you get talking to and who you naturally are drawn to. Yeah, there probably are people even now that each person hasn't had a one-on-one conversation with. So
Mm.
yeah, maybe
I
Vanessa
mean,
just hasn't got any measure of Diane at all.
yeah, and the fact is, like, what she was pointing out is that it wasn't a natural response. But there are two reasons for that: either because she's hiding something, like she's a traitor, or because she's not a particularly natural conversationist and she can't,
Yeah.
improvise and come up with something different to say, or she just thought, "Oh, I'll be so happy to see certain people," so she just keeps saying how happy she is. Well,
Yeah,
obviously, we know that she's not a traitor, so we see it as that. But again, you've got to
yeah,
just grab anything you can.
Yeah. I just think she was a sweet Irish mammy. And that was it. So Poddy is in the next group. He's doing his best to act natural, he tells us. Maybe unlike at the round table when some others noticed he was acting not so naturally, perhaps, looking down at the desk, not looking around at everyone else. Eamon is in the next group, and um, at this point, we're really now only waiting for our three potential murder victims: Michelle, Mark, David. Only two can arrive. There's a big knock at the door, and it's Michelle, followed right behind by Mark, which means my prediction was correct. Very smug to say. Um, I the reason that I thought David might go is I sort of used, I guess, my experience of the show to my advantage. I just went on, yeah, previous seasons. I thought quite often it's the natural leader, particularly natural male leaders or men who are quite outspoken. I think the traitors like to get rid of them first to shock the rest of the players. Can you see why they might have got rid of David, or do you think David was a good choice to get rid of?
I only have one thing that I'm trying to process, which is David's dead. David's dead.
David is dead.
David's dead. No, he's not. He's sleeping in his bedroom. What? Why would you say that?
This didn't even go. Not that David. My ex-husband David. Uh,
We'll just recreate the whole scene. Look, if you don't know what David's dead is, then you're clearly not on social media. I don't know if it's just people in the UK who get that particular algorithm. It was Celebrity Big Brother, Tiffany Pollard. Anyway, David's dead. Google it. It was
oh my God.
modern Shakespeare of our time. So I'm just processing the fact that David really is dead in the
Yeah,
Traitors.
he is. He's not asleep
Um,
in his bed.
he's not asleep in his bed. What a shame. These early murders are so hard, aren't they? Because I don't know. I hope in the future they will have like an early outs where they invite back some of these really interesting characters
Yeah.
that just got voted out really early. I don't think David's a big loss for the show. I think we've got similar kind of personalities to him.
Hmm.
Mark would have been a big loss because he's just got such an interesting story, and he seems like a really engaged and very smart. He's actually called out a couple of traitors. So yeah, I'm not going to be crying myself to sleep over David's
Yeah,
departure. But yeah, it's a shame to see anyone go this early.
sure. We get our flashback then to why the traitors made that decision. And they really do just reiterate what they said last night. He's a big character. They think his murder will send shockwaves through the rest of the players. And we see David receive his letter. He's gutted, said he kind of had a feeling this might happen. And it's here that I also remember, oh, there was this really conspicuous clip of him included in the edit in episode one, where right before he went to bed, he said, in case I don't come back, my top two suspects are Diane and Vanessa. So now I think back to that and I think, okay, maybe that's why they included this because the editors know he's not coming back, so they'll slip that in there. So
Mm.
I'm sort of thinking, all right, the edit makes sense. That's why they showed us that. And he does admit in his MIV here, his confessional, that he realizes maybe he was too outgoing and friendly and made lots of connections. And he's like, yeah, I can see why the traitors probably wouldn't have liked that.
Mm.
Which is essentially the reason why they chose him. And I was quite glad that at least he's not saying the classic murdered line of, I was clearly a threat. I was the biggest. So he's not. He seems quite sort of modest about it. He's like, "Oh man, I
Yeah.
shouldn't have done that." So I
I
admire him for that.
yeah, I think Irish people are quite down to earth, generally speaking, and they don't take themselves too seriously.
Sure.
And I'm just thinking now you say it, actually, don't go up to bed and say, if I don't come back tomorrow night, then it's definitely these ones, because that is giving a very good reason for the traitors to murder you.
Yeah, yeah. Given great ammunition if they happen to hear about that, absolutely.
Hmm.
Siobhan then, well, before Siobhan gets there, we see the shock of the other players at breakfast, but not Michelle. Michelle is sort of like, Miss, I knew this would happen. She points out how she's talking to Poddy and Christine, I think, and she points out to them, yes, this makes total sense. Um, Christine, meanwhile, reckons that Michelle is acting a bit strangely and differently and is suspicious of her. Siobhan arrives. She's wearing some lovely a tartan skirt. She's got a big, nice chunky sweater. It's sort of in the vein of Claudia Winkleman's type of styling and the UK Traitors. And she does what we know she's going to do. She takes poor Dave's photo from the wall, chucks it over her shoulder, cue reaction shots. I can't believe she just did that. Like, come on, you've watched the show. So she does her usual bit of chat. Poor Dave, he's gone. Introduces the mission, gives them some hints about it, and says this should be very easy, especially if you paid attention at school. What might this mean? Or paid attention in Duolingo, as you
Yeah.
have done, Matthew. We disperse then from breakfast. We have some castle chat. We've got a few things happening. Michelle hugs Faye, and Michelle is actually such an interesting character. The way that she is with people, she's hugging Faye, and she whispers, Dave's gone because you and him had an alliance. Like she's sort of like really in detective mode, a bit too conspicuously, I think. I sort of want Michelle to just calm down a bit. Uh, I get it. She's trying to be smart. She's trying to figure things out. I just don't know if right after breakfast it's the right idea to immediately be, I know why this happened. It's because of like just calm down, Michelle. Calm down a little bit, I think.
Well,
Uh,
you and I have now, since we last reviewed an episode, have actually played the Traitors.
yeah.
We went to the Traitors Live experience. Go listen to that episode because it was so much fun. Um, and so we kind of have like a mini sense. The whole game was obviously like just 2 hours, but trying to decide how much to speak, how much of a detective to be when you're faithful. Yeah, it's a whole thing. I do
Yeah.
actually feel like I've
Yeah.
had a little taste of it now. And you do
Yeah.
have to actively decide how active am I going to be in hunting the traitors. Spoilers, but for our game, I was a little bit too active, and she and you got rid of me, but it's fine. I have now got over it
You've moved
officially.
on.
I've really
You've
moved on.
you've won one over with me on me with your Irish knowledge, so
Exactly.
you've got one up.
I don't
Uh,
think of you as a murderer, betrayer, someone who's, untrustworthy, can't be counted on, unreliable. I don't think of any of those things when I think of you because you murdered me and ruined my game.
well, that's good to hear. Uh, yes, I think that experience made me realize that playing dumb can be a good thing, and I think maybe
Mm,
Michelle could play a bit more. Like
yes,
she doesn't really know what's going on. I think that
because
might
let's
be
be clear,
wiser.
she'll either get self-banished by just being so vocal and a little bit annoying, or she'll come across as uber faithful and then she's murdered. So
Yeah,
she's going a little bit hard.
yeah. Have to be careful. Poddy and Eamon have a little chat, and they're doing this sort of role play thing where they're talking to one another as if they're faithful. Of course,
Mhm.
we know they're both traitors. They know they're both traitors. And Eamon possibly puts his foot in it. I mean, I actually don't think it's a big deal. He says this line, he says, have you a name for tonight? And Poddy's sort of worried, thinking, oh, he means who we're going to murder. Someone's heard us. I think if anyone overheard that, they would just think he meant who you're going to vote for at Banishment.
Yeah.
So they sort of act like it's a big deal in the edit. I don't think it will be. I don't think anyone
No,
was listening.
although I do wonder what time they do the roundtable because obviously there's no natural light. I
Mm,
wonder if they do that kind of mid-afternoon. If they do
mm,
missions straight after breakfast, come back, have some lunch, and then go straight into roundtable. Because if it's 2 or 3 hours, they don't want to be starting it, too late. So when he
yeah.
says tonight, that might have meant,
Okay.
But
Yeah.
even still, you say tonight, afternoon, whatever. And it was so no one was listening. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, although and something like this happens later in the episode with someone saying something
Mm,
that maybe they shouldn't have said, but again, it probably goes unnoticed.
yeah.
We'll get there soon. Meanwhile, Andrew is, in fact, I think this is it. This is it. I thought it was much later. I think it is right now that Andrew's. No, I'm getting myself mixed up. It's because it involves Andrew and Poddy, but
Hmm.
just at this point, Andrew says he's worried that he might accidentally call Poddy dad or
Hmm.
something and might give their connection away. So some editorial foreshadowing there.
Mhm.
And some of the other players, led by Nick, seemingly recall what happened last night. Just before Dave left, he named Diane as his top suspect. Oh my goodness. The thing is, Dave said Diane and Vanessa, but throughout this episode, they just ignore the Vanessa part. So
Mm.
he very clearly said both of them. He said, I've got two names. And he stands up and he goes, Diane and Vanessa. But whenever anyone recalls it in this episode, they only seem to talk about Diane.
Mm.
Maybe they do talk about Vanessa and they've not included it in the edit because it doesn't really help lead the narrative
Yeah.
towards Diane. But I thought that was interesting.
I do always think the edit is hard work. I would not want to be the editor of these first few episodes because there's
Yeah,
so many people and you're trying to follow the threads and and it's like it often feels a little bit clunky, isn't it? It's like, oh, you've got to start putting this person's name out. You're like, who are you? What's going on? And then you realize, oh, you're going to be in danger of being banished. Okay, so they have to seed it. If they
yeah,
didn't do that, then the whole, the murders and the round tables would seem so random. So they've got to
yeah.
like just put some seeds in there. But it makes these first episodes, I think these are only 45-minute episodes as well, aren't they?
Yeah, they're not too short, 45, 50. Yeah,
Yeah. So that it makes it even harder. So many people and so many stories you have to try and get across.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, they're talking about Dave. He mentioned Diane, and this to me, strange thing happens. Eamon goes straight to Diane and tells her this,
Mm.
and I don't. It could go different ways. My first reaction to this was, Eamon, why are you helping her? Like, I didn't understand why he did that. I thought you don't. I don't know if you should give people a heads up that other people are naming them. I sort of
Mm.
think, well, you're a traitor. You want other people to get banished. Just let Diane take the hit at the round table. He kind of uses it to his advantage, I think, at the round table because he talks about how Diane responded to this. But
Mhm.
my first reaction was I was surprised that Eamon was telling Diane that this conversation had happened.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, Diane, anyway, is really shook because she doesn't even think she spoke to Dave. She's like, why? Why did he think that? She can't make sense of why he thought that. And actually, I don't even really know why Dave thought that either. We didn't have time to hear much from him or get to know him, so I don't know what his reasoning was.
Mhm.
There's there's a surprise moment for me next because Linda names Caitlin as a suspect. She's talking to a small group and she says, Caitlin's a traitor, I'm certain. And her reasoning, well, the reasoning that she gives this little group is that she's sort of thinking with the producer's head on. She says, well, they're probably going to pick a younger woman as one of the traitors. So I just think that puts her into that bracket. I first, I wonder if Linda has more reason than that, but she's just not saying it yet. But I'm
Mm.
really surprised. I thought Caitlin was doing well. In the first episode of the pod, I was saying Caitlin's going to go all the way. She's going to be the best traitor. So I'm surprised that someone called her out this early. Now, we say this on the podcast all the time. Maybe everybody is saying everybody's name at some point. Like probably every single player's name has been mentioned by someone,
Mhm.
and they just happen to have shown us this. But the way that she said she was certain, I thought, whoa, something's made her really convinced here that she feels confident enough to say it to
Yeah.
two or three other players. So yeah, I was surprised by that moment.
Yeah, that kind of came out of nowhere, didn't it, really?
Mm,
And it will either come to something or it won't. It will either
mm,
build momentum and Caitlyn's in trouble, or it'll just fizzle out, and that will be the end of that. Like you say, we know that everyone's name has been thrown around. It has to be. It has to be.
yeah.
So the producers are just, I'm surprised that they chose to show it. That's what's interesting. Because
Hmm.
normally, when someone suddenly a traitor gets banished, and you go, oh, it seemed to come out of nowhere. And then when they get out the castle, they end up going, yeah, everyone kind of suspected them. And you're like, oh, so the editors weren't showing us that. I see.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, Eamon does what he did to Diane. He immediately tells Kate about this too.
Mhm.
That makes more sense to me. I'm like, okay, she's your fellow traitor.
Yeah.
You want to work as a team and give her a heads up. We are ready for the mission. We're heading off in the cars. Michelle and Joanna, who is another player I don't think we've had any introduction to so far, so I even had to check her name. I was like, who's this person? They share some theories in their car. they're both suspicious of Wilkin because of apparent changes in his behavior. And Joanna also said he said something very unusual, the way that he phrased something. He was talking about David at breakfast and he referred to him in past tense. He said something about he said David was a nice guy or whatever. Um, and this ends up being quite important.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, Patrick and Nick are suspicious of Nina because she's throwing out too many names too readily, and that also does come up a little bit later on too. We arrive at the mission then. So here we go. This is your moment, Matthew.
Yeah.
We have some standing stones or Om stones with sort of rune-like marks. They're in a circle. We're in the woods, much like your beautiful background. I assume you are in the woods right now.
I am in the Irish woods. Yep, and I am actually an elf. Uh, I had to share it sooner or later. I
Okay,
don't want to say
that's
leprechaun. That would be taking it a bit too far. Although
yes, no.
Duolingo keeps wanting to teach me about leprechauns. I'm like, I promise you, Duolingo, I'm not going to need the leprechaun vocabulary as much as I am like owl, which actually comes in useful.
Yes, yes. And you being an elf explains why there's no breeze whatsoever in the wood
Yeah.
that you're in. So it's very still, but you've obviously got this sort of aura of serenity.
It's very
Um,
still. It's also strange that it's not pitch black because we're recording this in the evening. But, I have magical powers. My name's MaJiKer, deal with it.
Ireland, different time zone. It's a magical place. There's daylight there. It's fine.
Yeah.
Uh, so we have our Ohm stones, and the players have to find big circle tokens in the woods. There are 30 of them, only 10 are correct, and match the correct tokens with images to the correct Ohm stone. Using a decoding key, it's laid out on a big sort of chart for them. There are €5,000 available here. They have 30 minutes. Siobhan says it's an all or nothing task, which is a little bit misleading. So if even one of the tokens is placed incorrectly, they won't win. Like they don't win a fraction of the money. They either win 5,000 or they don't win at all. I thought it meant they would get one shot to do it.
Hmm.
They don't. They can try multiple times, and they'll know they've completed it properly because a giant suspended dagger will burst into flames. First of all, in the woods, giant flames in this is a fire hazard. I was
Uh,
immediately worried
I,
about
I
the risk
haven't, I
assessment.
haven't, I haven't been to Ireland. I'm pretty sure it's pretty dank, like moist, like humid. I think things spontaneously bursting into flames. I know we have climate change, but even still, from the way it was filmed, which
Okay.
I loved, by the way, all the mist and all that. It's so evocative. I'm really, really loving it. It feels very Irish. I was like, I don't think there's much of a fire hazard. And also, spoilers, but when the thing did go up, it was a budget. It was a budget
Yeah,
flame.
sure,
Let's
sure.
let's just let's just say that.
Yeah. Of course, that's not the only part of the task, as we have
Mhm.
alluded to. Siobhan begins to speak Irish.
I heard what she said, and I was like, I literally understand what she said. I mean, I had to rewind it a couple of times because, Duolingo. But she said, unless I'm very much mistaken, and please, Irish speakers, do tell me if I'm wrong. I think she said, "An will gwelga agan," which means literally is there Irish at us?
Oh.
But what it really means is, do we have Irish?
Mm.
It's the way that you say it, do you have Irish?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and I was like, oh my goodness. And
yeah.
I mean, conversation around, like, I'm not Irish, but as I say, I'm learning the Irish language. And every time I meet an Irish person in London, I have never met someone who speaks really fluently at all, and they all
No.
say the same thing, which is what they said on this show when she said, "Do you have any Irish?" They say, "Cúpla focal," which sounds rude but really isn't. Cúpla means a couple, focal means words, so it
Mm,
means that the phrase is, "Oh, am will gwelga agat." Do you have Irish? You go, "Ta cúpla focal agam," like I've got a couple of words. That's
mm.
just the phrase. It means, "Oh, I get," but un petit peu is in French. Ouais,
Yeah,
ouais,
un
ouais, je
peu.
parle un petit peu. Um, and but I don't know, it makes me sad that this beautiful language, is really not spoken. They learn it in school. Everyone has to learn it in school in the Republic
Mm.
of Ireland. And
Yeah.
yet the confidence is not there to speak. It can, it's so sad. They've studied it for 5 years, and then a lot of them didn't know the word for music or love or,
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. We'll get to it at the end, but then Niall said something that was very, very, very political and very powerful at the end of the mission.
Yeah. I guess it's a bit like Gaelic in Scotland
Mm.
that I don't speak a word of. And I do know a couple of people who do speak it, but it's yeah, not widely spoken. We do not learn it in school.
Mm.
Some schools will teach Gaelic lessons and you can choose it as a subject.
Mhm.
And there are Gaelic schools, but it's quite focused on a geographical
Yeah.
part of Scotland a bit further north, and yeah, it just didn't mean anything to me. But yeah, it's there's lots of worries about it dying out.
Mm.
So yes, Siobhan is speaking to them in Irish, and of course, only some players understand what's happening here, and those players are going to be really important to win this task.
Mhm.
Off they go then, the timer begins, they're running around, they're gathering tokens, some players are taking responsibility for the Irish translation. Diane says she speaks Irish daily, and it's cool to speak Irish now, which you have proven, Matthew.
Well,
And
yeah, I mean, I wasn't jumping on a trend. I pretty much invented the
well, you
trend.
set the trend. You say,
I
yeah,
set the
exactly.
trend exactly. I
Yeah.
was like, let's learn this language, and then, and then Kneecat came along, and that was that.
800 days later, it filtered into Traitors Ireland.
Yeah.
Uh, so it seems to be going a bit awry with people shouting over one another. They're mixing up the symbols on the key. They make one attempt and fail. And I just love the way that Siobhan reveals it. Like she just goes, "Nope, you failed. You failed." Like it's not like there's some sort of gong to say. It's just she just needs to tell them. It's like someone in her ears going, like, tell them they've done it. Tell them they've. And so she's like, no, no, failed, failed. So more ring around, yelling, confusion, and translation. Um, Andrew, this is the moment where Andrew starts calling Poddy Daddy. At least those two words
Yeah.
at least they sound a bit similar.
Yeah.
They end similarly. And again, I don't think anyone catches it, so it's fine, I'm sure.
Mhm.
But it did really make me laugh. Yeah, ongoing confusion and yelling, and even I know it's easy to say this as a viewer, but I really thought, how can this be so disorganized? Come on,
Mm,
get someone needs to take charge.
yeah.
Like it can't be this manic. And Niall is doing his best, but he's really struggling to keep up with everyone shouting at him.
Mhm.
I'll get to this, but I'm a bit confused about Niall's role. They try a third time, and hurrah, it works. And they only had 5 seconds left. What? It's amazing that they did it in the nick of time. So weird. And Diane says it's it's like winning the Olympics. Like all of the Olympics. The whole thing. I've won the Olympics. I've got a gold medal in the Olympics.
Mhm.
So Diane feels like she's won every sport, which I love for her. And they're all going nuts. They're chanting for Niall. This I'm confused because like wasn't Diane helping too? Like she says she spoke Irish every day. So why was it Niall?
Do you know what? I was also very confused. And again, I don't want to like overstep the mark, but I felt like there was still some kind of shame around the Irish language. Didn't you
Hmm.
just get the sense that even people who knew some words, there was this idea of, oh well, I'm not very good, and oh no, I don't really know.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's the vibe I get. And let's just be honest, like without starting a history podcast, it's because they were, people were made to feel ashamed of their language, as happened
hmm.
all over the world where English
Yeah,
became dominant because of colonization. And so
yeah,
there was so much shame associated with it. Because why didn't she put her hand up and go, I speak Irish, I love Irish. Yeah, great, let me get stuck in. It was very hesitant. And
yeah.
like you say, she didn't seem to know. I mean, honestly, like I Duolingo has told me about half of those words. I was
Hmm.
so proud. Ulhavan, owl. I mean, again, Duolingo, owl is not the most useful word, but I'll go with it. Kjol, music. Gra, love. Kri, heart. Bas, death. Um,
Oh.
yeah, and I was like, oh my God, she was going, Ulhavan, that's Ulster. I was like, no, it's not, it's owl. And then at
Yeah.
one point, yeah, and so I'm like, how can a fluent speaker? Maybe she just didn't have the confidence. What was
Yeah,
going?
and
What was going on?
it might be her confidence, and also it probably is that maybe she was just ignored because the other players are
Yeah.
suspicious of her and they just see her as sort of, well, she's the slightly older lady and we think she might be a traitor. So maybe they've
Mm,
just kind of ignoring her and we'll just go to like the handsome young teacher and
mm,
the fact that he's a school teacher. I think he's a
yeah.
primary teacher. So maybe they were just like, Niall's a teacher. He teaches the kids this all the time. Niall tell, and they just sort of naturally drifted towards him as their leader. So
Is
poor Diane.
Monsieur A. He's a teacher. There
There we
you
go.
go. Um, Uh, and but I wonder as well, because I felt like Niall was getting stuck in with the actual rune reading as well, because he was going, no, no,
Mm,
no, that's a C. No, 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 that's an H. So I think they were so hopeless at actually reading the letters and interpreting it.
yeah,
That is where he was adding the most value. And I can understand how Diane maybe wasn't, maybe her eyesight wasn't the best because it was really far away. So maybe that was it as well. Because
yeah,
surely, again, two of them fluent speakers, surely there were a few people knew a few more words than that.
yeah. So they win anyway, and they're celebrating. And while they are going mad and celebrating, Siobhan reminds them that, of course, they have their first banishment coming, so they shouldn't be too excited.
Oh, I
We're
have to
back at
just say before we
oh
move on, there was
oh
a
yeah,
funny moment for us fluent Irish speakers, which was that they kept on going, Shonach, Shonach, isn't that a squirrel? And they were like, and he was like, no, that's not a squirrel. They were going, Shonach, I'm sure it is. It's like, no, that's fox. And she was like, is that not the same? It's like, no, it's a different animal. A squirrel isn't a fox. She was like, are you sure, Shonach? It's like,
fox and squirrel,
it's
bushy
just,
tails,
you
sort
can't,
of
you
rusty
can't.
coloured.
God, I mean, Irish does, for example, have the same word for arm as it does for hand. They're the same
Oh
thing. That's very confusing. But I promise you, there is a different word for squirrel as there is for
yes,
fox.
yeah, I'm not
And
surprised.
and I just wanted to say, I don't know if you were going to mention it, but Niall says in his miv, wow, fancy that. I might be spared murder for speaking good Irish. And I was like, oh
Yes.
my goodness me. Because, again, without turning this into a history podcast, there was a time when you were heavily persecuted for speaking your language.
Yeah, yeah. So we head off. We're back in our cars. There's just a little bit here that I noticed. Joanna's telling Wilkin directly that she's quite suspicious of him, and it made me wonder, as many things in this show do. I thought, when do you do that, and when do you just blind someone at the round table? I she's taken it upon herself to just say, hey, I'm kind of suspicious of you, and I wonder if you have any thoughts on when you do that and when you don't do that. Like, is it smart in this game to tell someone you're suspicious of them and you may be voting for them tonight, or should you just keep that? If you really do think someone might be a traitor, do you just keep that to yourself?
Hmm. You're so unlikely to get a traitor in these first round tables.
Yeah,
Yeah, just statistically, it's very hard to know, isn't it? If you want to come across as a faithful, you might be like, I'm just going to lay it all out. This is what I'm thinking, and then you go,
yeah,
no one can accuse you of being underhand.
yeah,
It's like this game is so complicated because it's literally like you could that there could be a great reason for doing it or not. And when you've watched as many seasons as we have, it gets to the point where she did that and it worked out, or she did that and it got her banished or murdered. So
yeah,
it's so intricate. But right now, when there's like 20 people, like it's just there's too many voices, too many characters.
yeah. My instinct is that if I genuinely thought someone was a traitor,
Hmm.
I wouldn't want to tell them that because
Yeah.
I don't want to be targeted for murder. I actually want to, you know, not metagame it, but play the next level experience version of the game, which is figure out who they are and just kind of keep it to myself for as long as possible and
Yeah.
try and really get them out towards the end of the game. So I just wondered if this was a bit early. If she really thinks he might be a traitor, I don't know if I would have said it.
Hmm.
Back at the castle then, a few players talk to Niall about his victory, and Michelle says this thing. She says to actually she sort of echoes what he says in his miv when he's like, "Hey, it saved me from death." And Michelle says, "Oh well, at least you'll be safe from murder tonight." And I don't quite follow the logic of that. I think what they believe is I am really popular and I helped us win the money, So the traitors won't murder me because they want to keep people around who are good at the missions. I talked about this in episode 1 with Lindsay. I don't, I would never assume that means I'm safe for murder just
No,
because I did well on the mission. So I don't know if I missed something or if they're just
no.
reading it on a very surface level.
That's just really poor logic. It doesn't make any sense at all. And actually, if you're coming across as super faithful, you're a prime candidate for murder.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There are a few more little snippets of chats here and there. There's nothing particularly intense, I don't think, or um, substantial. We've got Wilkin saying that he's got no idea who he's going to vote for tonight, and maybe that ends up being possibly a bit of a problem for him. But fairly soon we are heading right into our first round table, our first banishment. As we come in, we we enter with Niall's voiceover saying something else that I thought, Niall, that doesn't make sense. He says, I don't think anyone's in a position where they can say 100% that someone's a traitor and someone's a faithful. And I thought, except for the traitors, Niall. Like, they know. So I maybe he just meant the faithful, but
Mhm.
as a blanket statement, I thought, Niall, that's not accurate. Some people really do know. So here we are. Siobhan arrives. She tells them that the trait. She does her spiel and sort of gets them all worked up, and it's all very tense and dramatic. And she uses this phrase that I thought could be a bit misleading. She says the traitors have operated right in front of your eyes, and I thought, not really. Like they decided on their murder at night. They didn't really do anything in front of anyone. I wondered. It's just a little thing. I just wondered if I was a player and I heard the host say that. It might make me think, were they doing some sort of like secret mission? Were they trying to sabotage thing? Like, what does she mean right in front of her eyes? So I
I
just thought
think
that
I,
was
I think you might be overthinking this. She's just being dramatic.
me? Never.
It's the spiel. It's the spiel where it's just like, well,
Yes.
they're traitors. Gotta catch them. Oh, we're
Yeah, yeah.
faithful. Oh, kill another one. Blah 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 blah. You've got to go innocent, guilty. Blah 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 blah. The table is open. Like
Yeah.
it's just, I get a little bit tired of those waffly bits. Although I never get
Yes.
tired of hearing total sidebar, but Karine from the French version of Canada say the worst catchphrase ever. Have I told you this? That this is what she says before each table.
I don't think so.
She says, I'm gonna get this right. Ch- Choisissez judicieusement, which means choose wisely. But it's the worst catchphrase I've ever heard in my life. Choisissez judicieusement. Like it just doesn't work. It
Yeah,
doesn't
sort
work.
of.
So I would have liked Siobhan to have done a lovely little, maybe in Irish, why not? A lovely little thing where they say, off we go. Like, word is, it's over to you. The table is round and life goes on. I don't know. Like, some kind of special, now we begin, you know.
Yes. Maybe even a limerick to get them. Although, that might just sort of break the tense mood
Okay, well,
with
now
like
you've
a,
set me
a
a
funny
challenge.
rhyme.
I will be listening and I will also be writing a limerick. Please continue.
Okay, limerick incoming.
Okay.
You made me think of something else there, which was my favorite. You know, some listeners will have seen it, some haven't. If you haven't, when it comes your way, watch the Traitors India. Fantastic season. There were some nice little catchphrases in there, and the host's phrase every morning at breakfast was "Rise and shine, it's Doka time," and it just has really stuck with me, that one. And Doka
Hmm.
meant doubt,
Betrayal. Betrayal.
betrayal. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Rise and shine, it's Doka time. So I will be using that forever. And if they don't keep using that in the second series of Traitors India, which has been recommissioned, I'll be very upset.
Mhm.
Back to our round table then. Nina begins. She seems to sort of take charge here. And she says something which makes sense. She says, look, we really don't know each other. We are going to just have to pick up on very small details. We've talked about that. And she targets Diane. She's saying, Diane, all I can say is when we took our blindfolds off after traitor selection, you sort of just looked down at the floor, and I thought that was strange. And then other players bring up Dave's parting shot. Like last night before he went to his room, his lodgings, he named you as his suspect. And Yeah, okay, fine. If you've got to go and if you don't have much to go on, sure. But also, what did Dave know? Like, he didn't know who the traitors were. Like, why were we listening to him? I mean,
Mm,
maybe I know. You've got to pick something, and maybe if Dave said that, you're like, well, did he and Diane have some little conversation we all didn't hear, and he knows something we did? So yeah, but um, however. Eamon, then this is I mentioned this earlier. Eamon sort of really sticks the knife in by saying, "Yeah, Diane, I came and told you about this, and you were really rattled when I told you." And I thought, "Geez, Eamon, he's, I mean, a good move on his part. He's playing a great faithful. But I thought, whoa, he's been a bit more ruthless than I thought he would be." Vanessa then repeats her earlier point. She thought that Diane was telling everybody repeatedly at breakfast that she was so happy to see them, and she found this quite questionable. And Eamon just keeps going. He says, "Yeah, it's strange that every time you've been questioned, you don't have any suspects. You've not named anyone." And she sort of pushed into it, and she's like, I think it could be Vanessa," which doesn't go down well. And Vanessa's like, "Well,
mm.
you're just saying that because I said your name." Poor Diane. She's really sort of trapped in a corner here. Christine briefly comes for Wilkin. She says also he was quite non-committal about who he might vote for tonight. And Eamon speaks up. He goes along with this as well. He's like, "Yeah." So yeah, maybe Eamon is going to do better than I thought. I was quite dubious about him in episode one. Joanne mentions Wilkins' grammatical blunder at this point, which she talked about in the car earlier, that he used past tense when he was talking about David coming back. And there's such a visceral response to this round the table. We just hear them all going, "Oh, oh." Then Nina even says, "That is a cat amongst the pigeons, if ever I heard one." So um, it ends up having a bit of influence over some votes, I reckon, just that one single thing. Mark takes the chance to pick up on Poddy. He says, "Poddy, you made this joke. You joked that when we had our blindfolds off, that I'd fallen asleep and that maybe it was the tap on the shoulder that woke me up, and that meant I was a traitor. But that you repeated the joke later, and so Mark sort of thinks that's a bit suspicious." Poddy manages to deflect it pretty well, actually. He just makes another joke out of it. And everyone laughs and they even give him a little clap. I can't remember exactly what he says. Something about, "Oh, you're going to use that as an excuse to murder me," or something like that. So I thought Poddy did quite well to just sort of brush that one off with a bit of humour. Patrick focuses on Nina. We've heard this already in the episode. She's thrown out too many names. She's like named like seven people as traitors so far. Particularly Linda, and Nina's totally denies it. She's like, "I didn't say Linda." And they argue more about whose names she said and who she didn't say and what exactly she had. And we go on a little bit there. She she weirdly says, Patrick, I mentioned you as a suspect." And he's just like, "Did you? And also, why are you saying this?" It's just a fun, it was a strange moment.
Mm.
Um,
I think because they're both quite strange people in different ways. I mean, in this context, that like Patrick in particular is very odd energy. There's something really weird there.
yeah, yeah. And Nina then moves on to tell Michelle that she's not approachable, which also goes down like a lead balloon and sort of ripples from that reverberate throughout the episode. And the conversation returns to David and that thing that he had said last night before he left. Again, to me, it seems like they totally leave out the fact that he also mentioned Vanessa. Just we just don't see them talking about that at all. And he did very clearly say it. So things keep going. Amy asks Wilkin if he can provide any defense. Like, how do we know you're, tell us why you're faithful? And he gives this sort of generic response. So generic, I sort of didn't even really write it down. Just the usual, "Oh, I promise I'm a faithful. I couldn't be a traitor.
Mm.
Uh, trust me." Something like that. It's now time for the vote, and because this is such a dramatic and exciting part of the episode, I had to just take a moment to prepare myself mentally for it, and I'm now in a completely different space with I had to change my clothes. I had to put on a new outfit just to get ready for the vote rundown. So, with no explanation whatsoever, I want to say that there's kind of a weird edit in the episode here. Like Siobhan tells them it's time to vote, and normally we get some little shots of them writing down names and glancing around, who will I vote for? But they immediately just go to the actual vote. So Siobhan's like, it's time to vote. Christine, who are you voting for? It's just a funny like cut out them writing, just let's get to it. So
Mm.
Christine begins the vote and votes for Wilkin, as does Michelle, who's next. She's focusing on his was comment, the fact that he spoke about Dave in the past tense. Andrew follows up by also voting for Wilkin. Then the next three votes after that go to Diane, Wilkin, Nina, Brittany, aka Faye. They all vote for Diane, and it's really funny because Diane's just going, "Oh, fair enough." Like she's just like, "Oh, "Sure, it's okay." Uh, then it's Diane to vote herself, so she goes for Vanessa, which I don't think anyone else is considering, but that's just Diane's thought to go for Vanessa. And it's then just a bit of an onslaught for Diane. Eamon, Linda, Vanessa, Ben, all go for Diane. Caitlin, of course, Caitlin is a traitor. She votes for Wilkin. So at least she's read the room. She knows it's Diane or Wilkin. It's going to be one of them. So she's just trying to blend in with the crowd, I think. Which means we're about halfway at this point. Wilkin has four votes. Diane has seven. Vanessa has her one vote from Diane. Mark's next, and Mark votes for Poddy, which is interesting because it makes sense. He talked about Poddy earlier, and he didn't like the sort of jokes that Poddy was making. I At the start of this episode, or at the end of episode one, I thought that Poddy was really in danger and was gonna come under fire from a lot more people, but no one else votes for Poddy. It's just this one vote from Mark, so he seems to have done well to evade suspicion.
Yeah, I mean it's a bit of a pylon effect, isn't it? You know, and I mean in these early roundtables, as you and I now know because we have played the traitors, you just want to get through the roundtable.
Yeah,
So if you
yeah,
go right, the wind is blowing towards Wilkin and Diane, that's fine with me. That's fine. That's
yeah,
absolutely fine. Why on earth would you go and vote anything else? And
yeah.
actually, I think Mark is setting himself up. It's a little bit dangerous here because he's saying, no, I will go on my own path to find the traitors. That's a very dangerous path, Mark.
Yeah, especially again if he really believes what he's saying, if he genuinely
Mhm.
thinks Poddy's a traitor, maybe it's not a great idea. Next is Oyen. She votes for Diane, and I, as a viewer, I sort of feel like it's inevitable what's going to happen. There's one more vote for Wilkin, and it's Joanna. Patrick also has another odd vote. He goes odd in that it's different from anyone else at the table. He votes for Nina. And he did single her out earlier, and he didn't like that she was naming lots of people very vocally. And the final five, it's Diane, 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 Kelly, Poddy, Amy, Nick, Niall, all go for Diane. So not a landslide, but a pretty clear majority. So Diane is going, poor Diane. She stands to give her goodbye speech. She speaks a bit of Irish here. I obviously don't know what she said. Maybe you, Matthew, were fluently understanding what it's like one little sentence, I think. And
I might have rewound that a few times and had to pass. Duolingo might have let me down there.
okay, for now,
Conversational, I am not.
maybe a listener will help us out. And after a wee bit of Irish, she says, "I know it's a game and it's nothing personal. Someone had to go, so yeah, she's taking it in her stride." And she reveals that she is, of course, a faithful. Gasps all round. They can't believe it. Oh no, we've got it all wrong. And Siobhan, off Diane goes. Siobhan does her in character scolding of the players and tells them that she'll see most of them tomorrow. There's a miv from Kelly here, and she says this funny thing. She's talking about the traitors, and she says, "Oh, they're playing us like a fiddle." And I just thought that was a little bit of an exaggeration because I thought, well, it's been one banishment. They're not playing you that hard. Like, you were probably going to get it wrong no matter what. I just thought it was a bit of overestimating of the power of the traitors to fool them all. Like, I don't think they're really playing you. This is just naturally what tends to happen.
Yeah, and again, like statistics, like, oh no, how could we be so foolish as to not find one of probably three people out of a table of 20? Like,
Yeah.
it's just maths. Like, it's really hard. Let's be clear, we've always said this. These early roundtables are really, really hard.
Yeah, and across, I think the seasons that you've seen, you've watched even more than I have. It's very rare
Mm.
it doesn't, it's not unheard of, but very rare
Mm.
to actually catch a traitor on the first round table, even the second. So
Yeah, and if they do, it's because it's smaller cast. Again, that's numbers, and also
yeah,
partly to do with the casting, because I'm thinking of a certain season, which I won't spoil for anyone, where they kept on getting traitors early on. Um, and it was just because, yeah, it was these kind of celebrities, I don't know, and the kind of notable figures, and they weren't really suited to it. So I think they were cast because they were known, not cast because they wanted to play the game or were particularly good at playing the game. So
yeah.
that would be an interesting statistic if anyone wants to go and analyze it. Do you get more early traitors on the celebrity versions or the civilian versions? I think it's probably
Ah,
the celebrities. I'm thinking
yeah.
particularly of the first season of New Zealand, which was hilarious. Do you remember that one?
Yes, absolutely. That's a good question. There's a great Instagram account called I Analyze the Traitors. I think it's I underscore analyze with a Z underscore the underscore traitors. And I believe it's another Matthew who runs
Oh
I Analyze the
no,
Traitors.
not another
Maybe,
one.
yeah, not another one.
Not another one.
Maybe Matthew I Analyze the Traitors could will look into that. So off Diane goes. Vanessa is really upset. She's in tears because she feels so bad about what's just happened. That though makes Niall a bit suspicious, and he also thinks that Nina was the ringleader here against Diane. I don't know if that's true. I mean, I think a lot of them were out for her. Patrick talks to the round table about he does like what Kelly did. He says this was orchestrated, and I think. Not really. I don't think the traitors masterminded this. I think they just jumped on what the like you said, the way the wind was blowing. So
Mm.
I think Patrick is also overestimating the power of the traitors a little bit here. They spread off then around the castle for a bit of a debrief. There's not much that happens here. It's fairly brief, a brief debrief. Michelle's annoyed at Diane because she had said that she was unapproachable, and there's an apology. And then Michelle gets upset and she's crying to Brittany slash Faye. I wonder if there'll be fallout from this later. Is there going to be tension from them that carries on? I don't know. Will it be important? And off they go to their lodgings, all worrying about being murdered and not coming back tomorrow. It's time for our final segment, the Traitors Dungeon. Actually, I noticed Siobhan described it. It's not a
Yeah.
tower, it's not a turret, it's not a conclave, it's the Traitors Dungeon.
Yeah, anyone
Um,
calling it a turret, I'm going to say, get the word turret out of your mouth. That's what I'm going to say, or else I'll come up and slap you. I don't slap people. It's a reference to Will Smith. Um, get the word turret out of your mouth because that's not a turret. I should
no,
know. I have a
yes.
turret.
And again, check out the Trader Pod Instagram page. You will see a picture of me in said turret. It's real, I can confirm, so you can get photographic evidence of that.
Yeah.
So we're in the dungeon, not the turret. They chat a little bit about whether Poddy's still in trouble or not. They reckon he escaped suspicion with his humour. Eamon suggests a plan. His plan is that they kill Mark tonight because, yeah, of course, Mark singled out Poddy at the round table, and they think, well, it'd be it's too obvious that Poddy actually is the traitor who would then kill the person who outright named him in front of everyone. So let's sort of do this double, triple bluff, this sort of layering of play. I think the others, especially Poddy, are like, I don't know about that. Yeah, that's a bit of a risk. And I get what Eamon's saying, but he's not the one that will have to face the consequences. So it might be smart, but I understand Poddy's hesitance to put himself out there like that.
Yeah, the only one who can make that call is Pordy because he was the one who was
Yeah.
nominated at the banishment.
Yes. Eamon then suggests Niall might be good for murder because, kind of like David, I suppose, he's popular, he's a nice guy. Caitlin throws in she thinks that some people do suspect him, so she's obviously heard his name being thrown around. Next option
Little
is Andrew. Oh,
little
yeah.
nuance there. Did you hear how they referred to him? They said,
I know.
"What would you think about getting rid of our little Guelgor?" Which is,
Oh.
I found that again as an outsider a little bit problematic. They're like, "Oh, because Guelgor obviously means you speak Guelga, you speak Irish.
Mm.
Oh, our little Irish speaker. Should we murder him?" I thought, hmm. Okay,
Yeah.
again, I'm kind of a little insensitive there. I presume they only said that because, of course, he was celebrated as being the Irish speaker in the mission. But I
Yeah.
thought that was again, I am loving when they're just dropping in these little bits of Irish as well, because like
Yeah. Yeah.
Guelgo is, someone who speaks really good Irish. I just love that. Shall we get rid of our little Guelgo? Wow.
Yeah, some interesting historic connotations there, but
Yeah.
it it would be funny if, like we said earlier, some of the other players were saying, "Oh, Niall, you're fine now. No, you've proven yourself in that mission." It'd be kind of funny if they then did just kill him off.
Mm,
So he's one of their options. Next option is Andrew. Caitlin thinks she says he's very protective. That's the phrase she used. I'm not totally sure what she meant by that. I actually thought for a minute she said protected, but I played it back and she says he's very protected. I think, yeah, she just means he's a nice guy and he seems to be looking out for everyone.
mm,
So maybe everybody feels like he's not a traitor and he's a faithful. And of course, Andrew is Poddy's son. Poddy quickly jumps in to say, well, maybe not. Maybe we shouldn't do that. And he says, maybe we should look at someone much quieter, someone who's just sort of sitting in the background and it would be a surprise to everyone. It wouldn't make sense, or they're kind of just not really doing much, and they want to keep people around who are likely to get banished. So they turn to Faye. I think they think of her as a sort of more quiet background person, and these seem to be our three options. Either Faye, uh, Niall, or Andrew. I think. I
there
can't
was
remember.
one more, wasn't there?
Or
Mark.
Mark. Yeah, yeah. So the episode's coming to a close. Interestingly, no Siobhan tonight. In episode one, she appeared to sort of help them write the victim down, and she would take
Mm,
off the notes. So I thought that would be a feature in every episode. Maybe not. Maybe it was just a sort of episode one. She's showing them the ropes, and now they
yeah.
can do it on their own. So Siobhan's not here, but they make their decision, and episode two ends right here. So Matthew, uh,
Hmm.
do you have any predictions, first of all, for murder? Of those names they looked at there, anyone they might go for?
Well, I think either Mark or Niall would send absolute shockwaves through the
Yeah,
castle. So
yeah,
if they're going to continue with that, they've got to get rid of one of them.
yeah,
Um, because also they both seem super. They tick two boxes. They're big characters, important players in the game already, and they seem pretty confirmed faithful to me.
yeah, yeah.
So if they're going to go with their gameplay, I think it'll be one of them.
I agree. I am betting on Niall. That's my pick.
Mm.
Not just because I think it would be a little bit funny, but I wonder if, and again, I'm sort of thinking in terms of production and editorially. Did they include that clip of, I think, Michelle saying to him, "Well, you're safe. You'll be fine tonight." I'm
Mm.
looking back and thinking, "Oh, did they include that to throw us off?"
Mm.
And next episode, we're going to go, "Oh, wait, they actually did get." But yeah, I agree. I think Poddy will protect Andrew from being murdered at this point if he
Mm.
can help it.
Yeah.
And Faye, I think. Well, I don't think it's going to make that much of an impact on the game if she's murdered. So why waste a murder on that? So yeah, I think I think they'll want to send a shockwave through the group, get rid of Niall, throw everyone off. That's my guess. Banishment? Looking ahead, are we worried about any of the traitors? Wilkin was in trouble here. He got, 5, 6, 7 votes. Is
Mm.
Wilkin next? Is it going to be someone new altogether? Any predictions?
I think again, when you've got so many people in the cast in these early episodes, it seems to go that momentum just picks up in the course of an episode for one
Yeah.
reason or another, and then that person goes. And it could be anyone, could be faithful, could be traitor. You just don't know. What doesn't seem to happen is that whoever got spared, in this case Wilkin, then becomes next in line. That doesn't usually happen, does it, when you've got these
hmm
big casts?
Yeah, yeah, there's big shifts all of a sudden, especially at the beginning, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh I am gonna Yeah, I don't think it'll be Wilkin for the reason you just said.
Mm,
I wonder, yeah, it might just be some completely new like maybe Nina. She got one vote. Maybe suddenly people are gonna pick up on her because she's quite outspoken and she suddenly gets lots of attention and lots of votes.
mm.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say actually Poddy will be in trouble and they will get their first traitor out second round table. I'll just go for it. Poddy's my bet for banishment.
Mhm.
Who knows? Uh Before we kind of start to wrap up, Matthew, any other thoughts on the episode as a whole? Anything that we just didn't cover so far that you wanted to talk about? Of course, we've got your limerick to come back
My
to.
live limerick writing. It's like
Yes.
a pretty high octane activity. Just been jotting it down here, and I'm pretty pleased with it. And I've actually come up with a bonus sixth line, which is very unconventional limerick writing, but it's more like a punchline after the
Okay.
limerick is finished. It's like a reflection on Traitors Ireland.
Yes.
You'll get that in a moment. No, I suppose just to kind of talk about like runners and riders at this early stage of the season, who's kind of really sticking out for you as one to watch?
Uh, I I want to say Michelle is gonna
Mm,
play. She's quite an interesting character. I can't quite make up my mind about her. Sometimes she seems like a mum of the group, and other times she's playing really hard, and I think, "Whoa, calm
yeah.
down." And I'm just yeah, I've got my eye on Michelle. I wonder if Andrew will do quite well because of Poddy protecting him, but
Mm,
then again, if Poddy goes, that means nothing.
yeah.
Nina's standing out maybe just because of her bright clothes. She's just visually catching my eye. Uh, yeah, I think those are the ones who are. I feel like I want to name the fastest, which must mean something.
Yeah. I feel like I've had very mixed feelings about Pordy as a traitor. Because sometimes I feel like he gets it and he really understands the assignment and he's on it. And other times I genuinely am worried. I feel like he's just going to say something absolutely ridiculous and just give it. But he's neither one nor the other. Sometimes he
Yeah,
seems to be doing it so like when he brought humor to the round table, I was like, wow, like chapeau, that was
yeah,
amazing because he really did exactly what was needed. And other times I'm like, oh my goodness, he's like millimeters away from saying the wrong thing and slipping up. So going to be keeping a close eye on him.
hmm
I did listen to your prediction on the previous episode about Caitlin going far,
hmm
and I would back
yeah,
that up. I would back that up because not just because she hasn't got a lot of sus on her, but she seems to be doing really well.
yeah,
Like she gets it. I think she gets it, and she
yeah,
fits the profile again. We've watched so many seasons now of the younger girl, pretty likable, straightforward, and she seems to be able to take that from, I was about to say the turret, take that from the dungeon and then through the day in the castle and on the missions and everything, and at
yeah.
breakfast as well. So yeah. But I'm loving the cast. I'm loving the season. I think it's good. I think at the moment, because there's so many of them, I feel there's a little bit of a spark missing, but I think that will come. I think that happens with a lot of these very big casts. We need to just see how it all plays out. Loving the production values, loving the editing. As I say, I think it's a good cast, but I need to sort the wheat from the chaff a little bit more before we see the ones that rise up. But there is potential here for one of the all-time kind of great seasons. So let's see how it plays out.
Yeah. And I think I'm really, really enjoying it. I'm waiting for those like two or three wild, explosive moments that happen in a
Mhm.
season that just make you go, oh, I need to tell people to watch this. People are gonna love
Yeah.
that. Wait till I can talk about this to everyone. So
Mhm.
hopefully in the next few episodes we're gonna get some of those water cooler moments. So I'm excited.
What you really want is someone to go, "It was you, Danielle. It was you, Danielle." That was a terrible impression, but if you know, you know. Traitors, one of the American seasons. That's what you're really looking for, isn't it?
It is. And I'm waiting for a but Ross is. I mean, we've kind of had that in
We've had that.
Andrew and Poddy, but we didn't have a classic line. We need a classic line that we know is gonna like
Yeah.
encapsulate the magic of this season. So I'm
hmm
sure we will get there.
Speaking of classic lines,
Hit us with the limerick.
okay, here we go. I will do my best dramatic reading. So this is the limerick that Siobhan needs to read before
Yes, yes.
the round table. Here we go. So now, as the hour draws later, their power can only grow greater. The slightest of doubt, and you must vote them out. So faithful, let's banish a traitor.
Well done.
And
Yes,
bonus
excellent.
line,
The
I'll
bonus
read the
line.
last line again with the bonus line. So faithful, let's banish a traitor, and then you can eat a potato. We're in Ireland,
No,
they like
no
potatoes.
Irish stereotype at play here whatsoever. It just happened to rhyme, and you just wanted to throw
It
it in there.
just happened to rhyme potato and traitor.
And they need food in the castle. They need
I
sustenance.
had potatoes for lunch, you know.
Yeah,
I'm very open-minded.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it is interesting how potato rhymes so perfectly with traitor. So let's
Yes,
see if
it
that
does.
comes in, see if that is relevant.
Well done. Get that submitted to the writing to anyone would think you're a writer of some sort,
It's,
Matthew.
it's like,
You might like write lyrics for things. Who
I
knows?
mean, it's like I don't have many skills in this life, but one of them is getting things to rhyme. That is a particular talent I have cultivated over 20 years.
Yes,
So if I
yes.
can't do that, then I can't do anything.
Now, Matthew, if people want to keep up with you and send you a little message and maybe even ask you for a custom limerick, how might
Mhm.
they get in touch with you?
Well, I am on the Instagrams, MaJiKer underscore, and yeah, and I've got a website, MaJiKer.com.
Yes. As for the podcast, you can follow on social media on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at the Traitors Podcast to stay up to date with the pod and the show and any other versions of the show that we might end up covering. You can leave comments on all of those platforms. You can chat to other listeners as well. You can email me at thetradarpodcast@gmail.com and you could leave a voice message so that you are featured on the podcast yourself. It's super easy. That is at memo.fm/the Traitors Podcast. It would be lovely to hear some wonderful Irish voices. And wherever you're listening, it's always very helpful if you can follow, subscribe, leave a little review or a star rating, help other people find the pod. And lastly, if you've been listening and enjoying and you want to help the podcast keep going, you might want to visit the coffee page that is ko-fi.com/Matthew Keeley, where you can drop in a little one-off donation of whatever amount you feel like to help keep the podcast costs in control. We will be back with an episode 3 recap. I'll be joined by another special guest who will be familiar to long-time listeners of the pod. And Matthew, you will also be back on a future episode with me. I can't remember off the top of my head which one it is, but
Mhm.
you will be back at some point, won't you?
I definitely will, yes. And now I wish I'd brushed up on more interesting ways to say goodbye in Irish other than slán, which is just bye. But I will practice for next time and I'll have a whole spiel to say, oh, it was so lovely to, no, that's too ambitious. Okay. It is nice seeing you. Goodbye. Something like that. Like
I expect it next time and maybe even a bonus limerick. Uh,
in Irish,
in
Asquelga.
Irish.
Okay. Yeah. Well, good luck with that because the pronunciation is not the easiest language. Let me tell you that.
If you don't have a rhyming Irish limerick, you will be banned from the podcast forever. So,
Okay.
with that in mind, we'll be back soon. Keep us on your radar.